I am the greatest.
I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick your ass.
You won't do shit. Just stick and move. And waking you up and saying, now stick and move. Keep your hands up.
Welcome to a new episode of the Stick and Move podcast. I'm your host, Trey, and today I am talking about the top 3 boxers of the 80s. Now, go ahead and make sure you guys like and subscribe because this is going to be a great topic and conversation. Now, I had an episode a few months back about the top 3 90s boxers, and that was a hot discussion in the comments section. So make sure you leave your comments, and I'll shout you guys out. But for the 1980s, let's do it. The top 3 boxers from the 80s. My number 3 is Aaron the Hawk Pryor. Now, can we say any more about this guy? Seriously? Now, this is a boxer who competed in the 70s, but made his mark throughout the 1980s. He was a 2-time light welterweight world champion, having held the WBA title from 1980 to 1983 and the IBF title from 84 to 85. He also had the Ring Magazine title from 80 to 83 and the Lineal title from 83 to 86. Now, if I'm not mistaken, he's been Fighter of the Year numerous times in 1982 or 81, if I'm not mistaken, and was voted by the Associated Press as the world's best light welterweight of the 20th century. And look, he is a boxer that, without a doubt, if you look at his career, having a record of 39-1, 35 by KOs. Look, we all know his legendary bouts with Alexis Aguayo from 1982 and in 1983. Almost fought him back to back, but surely dominating both fights. Now, I did an episode where I scored the fight, and I had Pryor winning, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while. So, but going to Alexis Aguayo, look, nobody wanted to fight Alexis Aguayo. I'll be the first one to admit, growing up in a Latino household, we always heard all these myths and fables about the legendariness of Alexis Aguayo. His beautiful technical fighting style actually kind of reminded me of a Nicaragua version of Tito Trinidad, having that kind of technical structure in the ring, light on their feet. Now here comes Aaron Pryor coming into those bouts, showing his athletic peakness, showing that, you know what, not only do I have athleticism and speed, but I have skill, breaking the guard of Alexis Aguayo. Now, did Alexis Aguayo get a lot of hits in there? Absolutely. But that comes with the sacrifice when you are a boxer that is coming forward the entire fight. Now, let's talk about the controversy in the room. That 14th round or that 13th round in between, when his trainer, Panama Lewis, with the magic elixir drink, did that benefit Aaron Pryor? Whether you believe it in or not, I think it did. Now, let's be honest here. Was Aaron Pryor, what was in that drink from Panama Lewis in that 13th round that seemed to give him that jolt to go to the knockout of that 14th round? Yeah, I honestly think there was something in there. They even have him on a hot mic saying, "No, give me the one with the mix." Then Panama Lewis will get suspended for his loading the gloves with Luis Resto, if I'm not mistaken. But look, when it comes to Aaron Pryor, he would go to the 80s unblemished, literally until he fought Bobby Joe Young in 1987, losing by TKO in that 7th round. But he finishes a decade strong. Okay, I mean, and he had problems, guys. I mean, he wasn't really the same boxer anymore. This is a guy, in my opinion, guys, who took who was, in my opinion, overshadowed by the 4 kings of the welterweight division going into the middleweight division. If those 4 kings were not around, I honestly think he would have been the face of the 80s, in my opinion. He was just to some regards, one of the most perfect style boxing fighters I've seen. His style was exciting. His style was complex. It was hard to crack. And look, when it comes to Aaron Pryor, we got to understand something that for the time that he dominated from the late 70s on to the 80s, he was pretty much unbeatable. Pretty much unbeatable. So I'm going to leave Aaron Pryor at number 3. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Is that a little too high for him? If I'm not mistaken, I think he was Ring Magazine labeled him the top 35, I think the 35th or 34 or something like that, greatest boxer of all time. Let me know in my comments if I have him a little too high. Now, number 2 is probably my most controversial pick because most people will probably have him number 1. And I'm going Marvin Hagler, my number 2. I get it. I get it. Iron Chin, gorgeous, gorgeous fighter in terms of skill. If in my opinion, probably the greatest chin of all time. Okay. Now, the reason why I have Marvin Hagler number 2 is because he stayed at 160. He stayed at the middleweight division. And here's the problem I have with it. He made everybody come to him. Now, if you're the top dog, does everybody come to you? Yes, I get it. But look, he made all the four kings come to him. Duran came to him. Thomas the Hitman Hearns giving us a classic first round bout, two round fight against each other with one of the greatest probably the greatest first round in boxing history, without a doubt. I mean, you're talking about a slugfest. And Tommy the Hitman Hearns was no stranger to going up in class. He would even go all the way up to cruiserweight, if I'm not mistaken. But after his two losses in the 70s, he pretty much goes unblemished throughout the rest of his career until he fights Sugar Ray Leonard. Now, when he fights against Sugar Ray Leonard, the problem I have is that, yes, he loses to Sugar Ray Leonard. I don't care about that. I don't care. If you lose in boxing, that's boxing. But it bothers me that he was so distraught about the loss that he walks off into the sunset. He literally retires and goes across seas to Asia, if I'm not mistaken, and starts a whole new life. Quits. He couldn't believe that he was robbed. I did an episode a few months back. You know, we have over 83, 84, 85 episodes, so we've done a lot. And one of the episodes was we scored Sugar Ray Leonard versus Marvin Marvelous Hagler. And my partner and I at the time, he's no longer with us. He has family things, issues to take care of. Um, he'll be back soon, hopefully. Uh, we both had Sugar Ray Leonard winning that fight. And in my opinion, what made him lose that fight to a certain degree is that he did not change styles. Sugar Ray Leonard throughout that fight kept the pace. He was moving up. He was showing off his defensive prowess and running around Marvin Hagler. In my opinion, taking him to school as Marvin Hagler continuously kept on keeping that old school thumping, plopping style of a fighter. And look, he was all time great at it, no doubt about it. But I had Sugar Ray Leonard winning that fight. Uniquely, it was Sugar Ray Leonard after a 3-year retirement, 3 years of being a boxing analyst, comes back after 3 years and then beats the boogeyman and Marvin had that nobody else can beat. Hearns couldn't beat. Duran couldn't beat, even though Duran had a very good fight against him. This is a guy that, without a doubt, is a legend, all time great. But I wish he would have challenged himself a little bit more, going down to fight against the Four Kings to fight them at their best instead of having them come up in weight and having their power pretty much uh useless at that point. I have Marvin Hagler number 2. I know that's a controversial decision. It just bothers me. He's kind of like the old school version of Triple G, where everybody went to Triple G's 160. He was not going to go up to super middleweight or light heavyweight to fight Andre Ward. He was just not going to do that. I know there's politics why that fight didn't happen. I'll have an episode on that eventually. But going back to Marvin Hagler, all time great. I have on my number two, all time. He's probably the greatest middleweight of all time, in my opinion. I mean, if you look at his accolades, I mean, this is a guy that when he competed in boxing from the early 70s to 1987, he reigned as the undisputed champion of the middleweight division from 1980 to 1987. He would make 12 title defenses and all but one by knockout. He also holds like the highest knockout percentage of all undisputed middleweight champs at 78%. His undisputed middleweight championship reign of 6 years and 7 months is the second longest active reign of the 20th century. And he holds the record for the sixth longest reign as champion in middleweight history. Look, this is a boxer, a Hall of Famer, uh, all writers of boxing journalism claim him as one of the greatest of all time. I mean, I think the Ring magazine had him number 16 or 17, if I'm not mistaken. Marvin Marvelous Hagler, all time great, all time phenomenal boxer. Rest in peace to an all time legend. Um, I don't know. To me, what I loved about him, I just loved his chin, man. And he got in a phone booth with anybody, like the way you saw with Tommy the Hitman Hearns, who I consider to be the greatest jab of all time. He utilized that jab and broke down my favorite boxer in Tommy the Hitman Hearns and changed boxing, made boxing history with that fight. All time greatest fight of all time. I'm currently writing a book about the greatest knockouts of the 21st century, and round by round, the best first round knockout, the best second round knockout. And in my introduction of that book, I talk about how that round made me fall in love with boxing. But when that book comes out, I'll let you guys know. But for Marvin Marvelous Hagler, all time great. Now, my number one, I know a lot of you guys are thinking of a certain guy. And believe me, I'm not saying this name for clickbait. I honestly believe this. And I'm going with Sugar Ray Leonard. I know most of you are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. How can you have a top three 1980s boxer without Mike Tyson? Let me explain. Now, when it comes to Sugar Ray Leonard, this is a boxer with 40 total fights, 36 wins, 3 losses, and a draw. 2 of those losses came in the 90s when he was already aged out, losing to Terry Norris and Hector Camacho. Okay. He was already done at that time. Now, when it comes to Sugar Ray Leonard, he is, in my opinion, the king of the four kings. He beat the guy the other 3 guys could not beat. The other 2 guys could not beat. Hearns, Duran, they could not beat Marvin Marvelous Hagler, my number two. Okay. My number one guy is without a doubt Sugar Ray Leonard. Here is a guy who opens the 1980s. I think his second fight of the 80s. I could be mistaken on that. Losing to Duran. Now, did Roberto Duran use mind games to manipulate the fight? Yes, and that's part of boxing. I've spent countless hours on this podcast talking about mind games and boxing. But yes, Duran got into his head, made him fight a fight, made him get into a phone booth with Sugar Ray Leonard, and that thumping power that Duran had in that iron chin, with the exception of him fighting Tommy the Hitman Hearns, was just too much for Sugar Ray Leonard when he was at that welterweight division. Now, when it comes down to accolades, listen, he is one of the all-time great boxers of all time. Winning world titles in 5 weight classes, the lineal championship in 3 weight classes, and he was undisputed welterweight champion. Like I said, part of the Four Kings, a group of boxers, and Not to mention, he was the light welterweight and gold medalist in the 1976 Summer Olympics. It's interesting because he fought everybody, guys. He fought so many Hall of Famers. He fought Duran. He fought Hagler. He fought Hearns. He fought Benitez. He fought everybody that was in front of him, and he had success against every single one. I know he had to draw with Tommy the Hitman Hearns and that lost to Duran, but he avenged it. He gave Hitman Hearns, a dangerous fighter nobody wants to fight, a second chance. And when he was wearing those candy cane trunks, which for some reason always stuck out to me as a core memory watching fights back in the day in the 1980s. I'll say this too. Look, he takes a 3-year sabbatical, goes into announcing, is a boxing personality, and he comes back after 3 years. I know I'm talking like a soft voice here. He challenges Marvelous Hagler, the boogeyman of all boogeymans, pound for pound, one of the greatest boogeymans of all time, goes to his division at 160. Yes, I'll fight you. I don't need to have you come down to my class. And not to mention, guys, Sugar Ray Leonard doesn't take up a tune-up fight to go to 160. You got to realize his last fight before Marvin Hagler was at 148, 149, takes 3 years off, fights him at 160. He goes, I don't need a tune-up fight for you, my man. I'm going to get in the ring and I'm going to give you a showing. And that show was a spectacular. One thing that's also very underrated about Sugar Ray Leonard was that he was an entertainer in and outside of the ring, guys. Celebrities since Muhammad Ali, since Rocky Marciano. Until then, the next guy up was Sugar Ray Leonard to bring in the Hollywood elites, Jack Nicholson, um, Chevy Chase, John Candy would all show up to those fights. They were excited to see even the athletes. I think in the crowd when he fought Hagler, I think Joe Montana was in the crowd. John Madden was in the crowd. And he brought that entertainment to boxing that the 80s needed. Yes, there was another terror on the other side in the other heavyweight division, Mike Tyson, that was also captivating the world. But here comes this welterweight boxer with a smile that is pound for pound, one of the best in sport, not only in boxing but in sports history. There with Magic Johnson as well. What a time to be alive in the 80s, right? All this sports dominating, all these great personalities coming through. And you know what? Sugar Ray Leonard was hanging with them the entire time. Sugar Ray Leonard is my number one. One, because he fought everyone, and two, he beat everyone. Did he have a couple of blemishes? Yes. But that's what happens when you fight the best in their prime. He was light on his feet. He was a showman in the ring. He did not use his showmanship as a cloak for hiding pain. He wanted to show off his speed. We've all seen as boxing fans this notorious footage of him doing jump rope at an elite level, him doing the speed bag, him running for numerous of miles, showing the entire world that nobody's going to beat me in the ring, not only mentally, but physically and endurancely. I don't even know that's the word. Sorry. Of all time. Sugar Ray and Leonard, without a doubt, is my number one. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at there, guys. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. As far as boxers that I left off, look, I had to go with Mike Tyson. I really had him on that fringe with Aaron Pryor, my number three. But I having Mike Tyson there, only reason why I'm kind of getting tired of saying he fought nothing but plumbers in the 80s. To an extent, he did. But I also think that was a create. I'm blaming that more on Don King. Don King showing the world that they were more interested in the spectacle than him getting schooled by a technically sound, better boxer, which I'll be honest, in the 80s didn't really have. Now, You want to talk about corruption with Michael Spinks being taking a dive or not? That's a conversation for another day. But if Mike Tyson had better competition, if he was running through everybody in the 80s, like, and those boxers were like Holyfield, which they were there. Foreman, when he made his comeback, he was there. Lennox Lewis, might be a little too late or too early for Lewis. Then I would definitely have had him. I probably would have had a number one if he would have ran through those guys in the 80s. But Julio Cesar Chavez was my other one. I just think that in the late 80s, that's when he made his turn. Now, he would start his career in 84, if I'm not mistaken, and he was kind of underneath the shadow of Salvador Sanchez, but after his accident, dying at the age of 23, the welterweight division was just a little bit too much for the super featherweight and super bantamweights that Cesar Chavez competed in. Um, the welterweights, the Four Kings, was just too big. Even the lightweights with Aaron Pryor, they were making a name for themselves. And it wasn't until the late 80s where Julio Cesar Chavez really took it to that next level of fame. You can also attribute that to Don King if you want to. But look, those are the two main guys I left out. Go ahead and leave me in the comments any other boxers that should have been on my top three. Tell me what you think of my top three list. Tell me if I'm crazy. Tell me if you love it or you hate it. And don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Every Monday and Wednesday, we have a new episode. And I'll leave it with what I always say. Don't forget to stick and move, baby.
I am the greatest. I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick